Hello class and welcome to Module 2. The two chapters in the book that will be covered in this module are chapters 1 and 10. I've combined those chapters because I believe they will provide an excellent foundation for us to build upon. So within this module we are going to be introduced to a few significant mindfulness themes that we will refer to throughout the semester. The first one that we're going to be looking at is leadership excellence, which entails 4 components. You have focus, clarity, compassion, and creativity. The idea behind leadership excellence is that as a mindful leader, you need to be focused. You need to have clarity on the situation. In the present moment, you need to be creative and you need to be able to show compassion. We will continue to build on the idea of leadership excellence. We have modules focused on each of these individual characteristics, and we will continue to examine those throughout the semester and see how we can implement those into our daily routine. Another major theme discussed in the chapters and within this module is the idea of learning to respond instead of react. And the idea here is that when an issue arises, we pause, take a second, and respond instead of react. This is a concept that sounds really easy. Of course I'm going to respond and I'm not going to react to a situation. But what happens in the heat of the moment, with our emotions, under stress, it becomes really easy to react instead of respond. And once you've done that, once you've reacted, it may be something that you can't take back. And as educators, we know we're under a microscope and every action we do is going to be analyzed. So it's important for us to be able to pause and respond instead of react. I know for me, I get plenty of practice working on responding with my kids. For example, if my daughter spills her water, it's not a major issue, and it's really not a big deal. You spilled your water, oh well. But if it's been a long day, if I've been under stress, or if there have been several issues that have built up, sometimes I can just react instead of respond and say something, get more upset than I should. And usually as soon as that happens, my first thought is, why did I do that? Why didn't I just take a second and respond? Because in the big picture, it's really not that big of a deal. But I just made it a bigger deal because I reacted instead of responded. Again, this is just a mindset. It sounds simple, but it can really be challenging, especially in the heat of the moment. And we train for that. And if you want to become a mindful leader, you train to respond instead of react. And it's something we will work on throughout the semester. And in order to respond, we have to be focused and we have to possess clarity. The next theme we're looking at is the idea of presence and being in the moment and being able to have our full attention on what is occurring right now. And it requires us to have a full and complete non-judgmental attention. What I mean by this is there are no preconceived notions of what's going to happen or who this individual is. This can be really challenging to show presence, to be in the moment and just live in that actual moment and eliminate all the distractions and make a clear and informed decision. A great example of presence was discussed in the book where they talked about Bill Clinton when he was on the campaign trail, and he would go and meet these potential voters. And he was able to be present and focus solely on that individual he was speaking with. And which is just amazing to think about everything he had going on, that he has the presence to make that individual he was speaking with seem as though they're the only person that matters to him. But to accomplish this, a major thing we need to have mental space. And going back to that Bill Clinton example, I could only imagine what was going through Bill Clinton's head as he was on that campaign trail. I'm sure a million other issues or ideas not related at all to that individual he was speaking with. But he had the ability to be present and focus on the situation and just listen to others. In order to have mental space, we need to have clarity. We need to be focused. We need to listen deeply to ourselves and others. And we also have to slow down and not make decisions with distracted minds. Unfortunately for many of us, what happens is we live on autopilot and we struggle to be there mentally. A perfect example of this was last week when we did our basic, just close your eyes and just breathe and try to focus on what's going on, how hard that can be, and how easy it is just to, it's a Tuesday, I'm going to go on autopilot. I know I have this class, and this class to do, and not actually be present. Another major challenge that we have is this idea of multitasking. And it's almost became a badge of honor. Hey, I multitask, I'm amazing at it. I can do 5 tasks at one time. I know in the past, I would always ask my students if they could effectively multitask. And I would say without fail, the majority would say, I can do that. Unfortunately, research indicates that people cannot effectively multitask and usually end up doing a poor job at both. I know for me, a lot of times if I'm working at home, I have a TV on in the background. It's just what I do. And I found that if I'm working and I'm zoned into what I'm doing, I have no idea what's going on the TV. If I'm watching TV, I do a really poor job on my work. So I can do one or the other, but I can't do both. And that's how it is for, I think 95% of people are unable to truly multitask, even though we all think we can. And when we try to multitask, we end up doing a really poor job at both. Adding to the issue of multitasking is technology. And how many times have you been talking with somebody and they're on their phone, they're texting somebody, they're looking online at something, and you know they are not present, and you know they're not focused on you. You know that they're not giving you their full attention. I know I do it often. I know people around me do it. It's just the reality, but we need to get away from that if we want to become mindful, if we want to become a mindful leader and be in the present and have clarity and be focused. Looking at another issue that we have to analyze, examine, and determining how we can improve is our time management or balance. Learning how we handle that urgent versus which is important. I'm sure we all get endless emails every day. How do we determine what is urgent and what is important? And we'll analyze our time throughout the semester and the time of a leader and how to determine what is important. And yes, there are tasks we need to do, but it should be what is important to us. And one of the goals of this course is learn how we can use our time wisely and spend time on what we have determined important and not what others believe is important. People will gladly take your time or gladly give you more to do. It's up to us to say, hey, wait a second, we're not going to do that. I need to complete this, or I need some time for me. That makes me think about how do we spend our day? What do we do before work? What do we do at work? What do we do after work? And how much of that time is actually on what you believe is important? And what happens is when we are spending our time on things that we don't believe are important, it can become stressful because we still have the things we do want to spend our time on. We just don't have it because we're focusing on things that aren't as important. And hopefully we will begin to realize, hey, wait a second, this is not that important. I can put that off. I'm going to focus on what is important at this time. And that moves us into something that a lot of us really struggle at, and that's priorities and prioritizing ourselves, and the idea that we need to prioritize ourselves and our well-being. Unfortunately, most of us don't do this, and we're on our list of priorities. We're just way down at the bottom. But it is important to prioritize ourselves and our well-being. We'll have some exercises that do reflect on that. And it always surprises me how many of my students do not prioritize themselves or actually take time for themselves. And we get caught up in that day-to-day routine, that autopilot, where as soon as we wake up until we go to bed, we really have no time for ourselves. We'll do a little exercise in here where we'll do a 5-minute meditation, and I'll have students that'll have a hard time getting that in. And you're thinking that's 5 minutes out of our day, but we pack our day so tight with priorities that always aren't important, and we don't take time for ourselves. And when we do that, our stress levels increase, and we can become unhealthy. I do like the calendar example in the book where they talk about how we can learn to use mindfulness to positively impact how we go into meetings and reduce our stress and anxiety. Thinking about prioritizing our time, ourselves and our time, we'll talk more about this idea that, I would waste away time worrying about or focusing about issues that hadn't even occurred. And that calendar example gives us an opportunity to kind of reflect on the amount of energy that we waste. I know when I would do a calendar reflection, I realized, man, I spent a lot of energy and wasted time on things that really weren't that important. As we wrap up this module, we're going to continue to grow and think about how we approach and handle situations, how that impacts leadership, and how that makes somebody a mindful leader. We know we need clarity and we need focus, and it'll become more obvious when we are not present and when others are not present. And you'll catch yourself in a conversation, and you may not say anything, but you'll think, man, I really wasn't present for that conversation. I will also continue to work on trying to balance our time and ensuring that we allocate time for ourselves, and we'll explore more the reasons that's necessary, especially in mindful leadership, and think about how this actually impacts leadership and the impact this can have on a leader and how that can make a leader more mindful.